Welcome to the GSD Factor podcast with your host, Misha Blameyer-Farish.
Welcome to the GSD Factor podcast. I'm your host, Misha Blameyer-Farish, and today I am honored to have Jody LaVoie calling in from the Chicagoland area. Hi, Jody. How are you?
Hi, Misha. I'm doing great. It's sunny today, which is awesome for Chicago. I'll take it.
Absolutely, especially for February. So we're so glad to have you here. And Jody, I'm so excited for us to have this conversation because the work that you do with widows in the workplace is a really important mission. And I think that empowering widows, helping them know that they can survive and thrive, I think is really important after their journeys that they've been on. And so I'm really honored to be able to have this opportunity for us to have this conversation, amplify the message and the amazing work that you're doing. But Jody, let's start a little bit at the beginning. And why don't you share a little bit about your story with our listeners today and how you came to start Widows in the Workplace?
Absolutely. Thanks, Misha, for having me. And thanks, listeners, for listening to my story. My story is probably one that you're not expecting. So I kind of like to always put that little caveat at the beginning. So hang in there till you hear it all. I was a stay-at-home mom of three amazing daughters. And one day in 2014, in the summer, my life changed forever in one day. And I went out on a run. I came home and I had a knock on my door, Misha, from a local police officer. And he was holding a piece of paper and he just said, "Your husband has been gravely injured. Call this police officer number in Chicago." And I'm like, "Give me more info." And he wouldn't do it. He's just, "Call this number." So I called. Really not much more information from that police officer either. He just wanted me to get a ride downtown. So I did. But 2 minutes after that call, I got a call from the press asking me if I would like to make a comment because my husband had been shot at work by one of the employees at our business. And this was a business that he had founded a few years prior, many years prior, actually. And he had demoted an employee 3 days prior to this fateful day. And that employee brought a gun and came back to our office right downtown Chicago, right in the loop, the heart of everything. And he shot my husband and then he killed himself on the spot. So overnight, because this was our business, we were the largest shareholders of this business. I went from full-time stay-at-home momming to running a company to taking care of my husband. He did not pass away right away, but he never regained consciousness. Helping my three daughters who were 9, 12, and 15, Misha, at the time. My oldest was entering high school. Like, high school's rough on a good day. So it was hard, and trying to manage a lot of outward facing things. This wasn't something that was covered a lot in the news. And I had to be very careful about what I was saying on Facebook and Caring Bridges and all of those things because the media was all over all of that. And I had no privacy. And so I'd certainly never lived a life like that or had to think about things like that, Misha. And I guess it's things you see in the movies. Like, my husband was in the hospital. He did pass away 3 months later from his injuries, but I had to have an alias name for him because the media was calling. People were just showing up. It was crazy. Like, I would never have thought about anything like that, but I had to.
Such a sad, intrusive jolt to your life, right? Where life is happening one way, you go out for a run, and then all of a sudden life throws such a massive pivot.
It does.
And
It did.
your resilience is a beauty in action. Being a GSD woman as you are. So share with us now, and I first of all thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. And my hope and desire as we are sharing these stories, right, is that as we are transparent and vulnerable, that they will resonate for those that need to hear it. And maybe someone's had a similar story or somebody is going through it in the moment. But now with that life pivot, right, Jody? So now take us on your journey of post pivot. Now what happens, right? Your husband has passed. You are now running the business. You're raising your 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Talk us through what that was like, and what were the tools and resources that helped you get through.
Oh my gosh, Misha. I mean, and that was a 2.5 year period of running the business and being fully invested in it. And as you can imagine, anybody that has gone through loss, right after you lose someone, there's just so much extra responsibility. I mean, not only just the stuff, like the paperwork, all the things that have to happen, but you're doing all of that with this incredible emotional weight that's on you and trying to just GSD stuff, And I had so many moments where it was just, it felt like one rock was falling, another rock was falling, another rock was falling. It was like the whack-a-mole game all the time. And I just focused on whatever was happening at the moment and dealing with that. And then I'd move on to the next thing and dealing with that and moving on to the next thing. And, I didn't really realize, Misha, what was probably fueling me until later was anger. I was angry. I was angry that this happened. And yet I wasn't going to let anything else be taken from me, from our family, because we had lost so much. So I was fighting for sure. And just adrenaline and I wasn't going to let any balls drop. So the business at the time wasn't doing well, unrelated to the incident that happened with my husband. It needed work. And so thankfully, everybody loved my husband at the business, and everybody was all hands on deck. Nobody was going to let the business fail. And everybody worked, full time and then some, for sure, to make sure that the company turned itself around. And it did. And we grew and got to a place where we could sell to private equity, which was always the goal, was to sell. It just needed to be the right time. So I have a big sign on my wall that says just breathe, because I was not breathing. I was a complete stressed mess. I was not taking time for myself. I was focusing on my kids and trying to help them. And, they each had their own challenges related to my husband's death too, that required a lot. And, one thing I learned in that is I couldn't be an expert in everything. I relied heavily on others. I knew what I knew. I knew what I didn't know, but I did know who to go to. And I was able to ask. And those are not easy things sometimes for people to do. And especially women. As women, we like to just do it all the time because we can, of course, right? And I knew I couldn't. So, gosh, when I first started running the business, like literally, I didn't have a LinkedIn. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have a bio. I had none of that. So created all of that and really realized, you know what? I am pretty well connected and I am a lot smarter than I thought I was. And I can figure this out. And in the end, of that period of not breathing so much, I really grew as a person and as a woman in business and as a mother. My daughters looked at me and still look at me in a much different way than they did back before my husband passed away. And they see their mom as a powerful, capable business professional and following your GSD stuff and getting shit done all the time. And, they're proud of that. And that makes me proud to have 3 daughters that are proud of their mother and, are proud of themselves too for what they've been.
I hope you're proud of you too, because you embraced that life pivot. You really dug into that resiliency and that confidence and said, all right, I've got to dig deep and create maybe what's not there as it relates to LinkedIn and our profiles and our resumes. But then being able to look at a business and turn a business around in 2.5 years to be able to sell that business, like that is a huge moment of celebration. And so I hope that you have taken that time to be able to celebrate that turnaround that you did. And I so appreciate you dropped so many nuggets on our listeners just now, right? Remembering to breathe, remembering to say, I know what I know, but I know what I don't know. And and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay in that moment to be transparent and vulnerable. So Jody, now let's pivot into what you're doing now and this amazing organization and how you're supporting widows in the workplace. And how did you now take that and channel it into this beautiful thing you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And, it was a journey. And as I was running the business and seeing, and it was a tech business, and seeing the lack of women in the industry and in leadership, and how hard it is to be a woman professional in general today. I knew that was an area that I wanted to focus on. And secondly, widows, because you're trying to have your career, and if you have children, managing those and grieving all together, it is hard. And so I wanted to take what I'd learned in my process. And I also went back to school and I became a certified coach and got a lot of training in that space as well as in the grief space. So I am educated as well as experienced on what I do. And I launched my business, Widows in the Workplace. Gosh, it's been 2.5, 3 years ago now, to help widows that are struggling like me, that have lost their partner, their person, and are trying to find what's next for them. Because as you can imagine, and everyone out there that's had a loss in general, your life changes and you really realize and take stock of how short life can be, and you don't know what's going to happen in life. So to be able to take advantage of what you love and use your skills and give back, all of that was very important to me. So that's kind of what led to the birth of Widows in the Workplace.
Help your team get shit done and gift them a copy of the GSD Factor book or adult workbook, or even both. With interactive exercises and journal prompts, they're designed to ignite a transformation in their professional and personal development. Learn more about how you can GSD with your team at gsdfactor.com. And that channeling of, you took your grief, you took your journey, you took what you experienced and said, okay, now how can I turn around and help others? Is now your influential muscle at work. And that's why You are such a GSD woman, right? Because you do encompass all of the attributes, and being able to take our stories and take our journeys and then impact the world, I think is really those stories that we want to share with our listeners and with our listeners around the world. And I think it's so important. So talk to me a little bit about what are some of those offerings that Widows in the Workplace provides, in case, again, everybody who's listening, right? Someone who's been impacted in some way, shape, or form. So what are some of those tangible tools and resources that Widows in the Workplace is doing for widows?
Yes. So just in general, I have a website, Widows in the Workplace. So you will find and have access to all the free resources that I have on there. I do have a free monthly call for widows, a coaching and community call where I get many of the same people keep returning, and we're able to talk together and learn from each other about what widows are going through. And that's very, very helpful. You talked a little bit about stories, and I think the stories we tell ourselves in our head of what we're capable of, what we're not capable of, are so important just for everyone out there in general, just to be mindful of the stories you're telling yourself. And so I also work one-on-one with widows via Zoom, because I wanted to be able to reach as many as I could and not just limit myself geographically to where I am. And why working one-on-one is so important is everybody's widow and grief journey is different. And everybody comes at different stages in their grief journey. I have some clients that come to me before their spouse passes away, because they want, these are the words of one of my clients, she wanted to set her and her daughter up for success. And she knew her husband was going to pass away. And she also wanted somebody who's been there to be able to be there with her and help her through those difficult times and guide her and hold her accountable as well for tasks that she wanted to get done. And not just physical tasks, but mindful tasks for herself, and how she can constructively spend time on herself to help build herself up again and rediscover who the new self is. Because for anyone that's been through grief, and especially widows, our role changes. We don't have our partner anymore. We're now the solo parent. We are now many times the primary relationship with our late spouse's family. We're having to make big decisions that alone, which is never fun to make those decisions alone, but that's the cards we as widows were dealt. And so to be able to have someone guide you and advise you and listen to you and help you grow in that process is so important. And it's incredibly rewarding to me, Misha, every day, because I can see the progress my clients make and how they're finding happiness again and lightness, like in their life. Like I can just physically feel them getting lighter.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jody. And I think what I take away from that is it's that powerful connection and network and relationships. And within the GSD Factor Life, we talk about, you have your GSD Factor clan, which is that personal group. So think of it like your tribe, like your network, but it's that group of people that you have that are really supporting you from that personal perspective. And then we talk about the GSD Factor Insiders Board, which is more of your professional. And I think what I hear you saying, right, is the work that you do and what Widows in the Workplace is doing and offering is you guys can have that seat at the table, whether it's your clan or whether it is your insiders board, based on, is it professional things or personal things that widow is experiencing. and for them to not feel alone. I think, as you know, we're both women in tech. We're both women that have been in, male dominated areas in the industries. And the thing that I hear from a lot of those fellow colleagues is, I thought I was alone. I thought I was by myself. And when you do connect and network and build those relationships, it's that encouragement and that empowerment that the sisterhood has to say, you're not alone. You're not the only one experiencing this. And I think that the component that has been missing is those widows in the workplace, and how do we bring them along, and how do we help them reignite themselves and rethink themselves. And I think it's just beautiful what you're doing, and how you have rechanneled and pivoted your own grief and your own journey into this beautiful offering for those widows in the workplace. So thank you. So let's take our own little pivot and talk to me about, you obviously embody so many of the attributes, the GSD factor attributes, Jody, but talk to us about what are maybe one or two that really resonate for you at this time.
Yeah. So, my number one at this moment is inquisitive, because in life, questioning, listening, and understanding and learning are all part of that. And I do that every day. And not only for the work I do, but just for me personally, I'm always learning. And that is one of my personal core values in life, and searching out opportunities to challenge myself and learn something new. Like this weekend, I went to the Art Institute, and there was this sculptor there that I love, but I hadn't dug into her history in a while. So I was watching some movies before I went, and so I could be a little more informed. And so just adding that kind of extra layer of enthusiasm around learning.
Beautiful. All right. So in this 2024 year, we are asking all of our guests to share, what are you powerfully choosing?
Yes. And I have two things. So I'm going to share one. One is relationships, and relationships in general. And this is an important thing for widows, because a lot of our friendships change, and people that you thought were going to be there, just aren't. And so finding new friendships. And for me too, I'm an empty nester this year, Misha. And so that's just changed my life. And a lot of my friends are moving away and moving to warmer places, and I may be following them. We'll see. But really getting those grounded, good, solid, deep, important relationships is important to me. And so I am mindfully joining new activities to help me find those people, but putting myself out there from a vulnerability perspective, following up with people, making the time to have meaningful conversations. So relationships is definitely it for me.
Love it. And you said there were two. Do you want to share your second?
Sure. Financial, frankly, and to have a better understanding of, I have a budget. I use QuickBooks. I do all of that. I've got the data, but I rely very heavily on others to help advise me on things that I would like to be more informed on. So researching and learning in that space.
What is so amazing about both of your powerfully choosing intentions, right? One is that interpersonal relationships, right? It's that connection, and as relationships evolve, and as we go through our various seasons, whatever those seasons are for you, there is that intentionality around those relationships. And so it's that the emotional component, the networking component, the feelings component. But then what I love is your second one is very practical. It's like, I want to be I want to powerfully choose for myself financially and make those financial decisions. And I think as women, we haven't necessarily been taught or empowered to do that. It's like, oh, you can always just rely on your husband or your partner, or you can always rely on that advisor, or all those different things. And I have always been of the mind that we need to know just as much, if not more. It's okay to still have those people in our lives, but we still need to have that understanding to be able to ask a lot of questions and be inquisitive, and also be able to challenge and say, I don't feel comfortable with that financial decision, or I'm going to challenge you on that, whatever it is. And I think that that's such a powerful message for our women to hear, but also our widows to hear, is that you can be confident enough in the various decisions that you have to make, maybe on your own now, that that you can find those and you can learn about them, but you can be confident in that. So I love how the two they really come together so nicely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So Jody, let's give our listeners your details. So where can they find you and reach out to you to learn more?
Sure. And we'll keep it easy. It's Widows in the Workplace for my website, for my Instagram, for my Facebook, and for LinkedIn. So come find me. I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, and we'll definitely provide all those links in our show notes as well. Jody, thank you so much for honoring us with your presence today. And thank you for the amazing work that you are doing for widows in the workplace, and being able to surround them and support them and help them, in their journey, right? In that moment of, am I going to survive? And then how do you pivot from surviving to thriving? And, there's a transformative journey that happens for those widows, and you being there with your resources and tools, taking your own story and empowering and encouraging others. Thank you. And to our GSD Factor listeners, thank you for being on this journey with us today. Please listen and subscribe, and we ask you to remember, always get shit done. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the GSD Factor podcast. If you liked this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, where you can also find previous episodes. Let's also connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you're looking for more information on the GSD Factor, visit us at gsdfactor.com. And always remember to GSD, get shit done.